In this video, I'm going to teach you a bit about multislotting, which is inserting F2L pairs in different ways to influence your following F2L pairs. Multislotting in F2L is essentially choosing to solve an F2L pair in a way which influences the following F2L pair to set it up to an easier case. Because there are many different ways to solve an F2L pair, we can choose between those different ways of solving the pair depending on how they influence the pieces of your next F2L pair. As you can imagine, this requires a very good understanding of exactly how pieces are affected when you perform certain moves, so your spatial awareness needs to be really strong. You also need to know a lot of different ways to solve the same F2L case, as that's what we'll be using to help us actually do multi-slotting. So there are multiple different ways in which we can solve a connected F2L pair into this front right slot. The most basic, of course, is the RU''R' insertion. Notice that when you do an RU''R', this corner piece down here and this edge piece up here will get connected if they're in those two positions. If the corner piece is up here and the edge piece is back here, we can do a U and then do an RU''R' to insert this pair, which will pair up these two pieces. So solving this pair, we're looking at these two. So instead of doing an RU''R' and have them end up over there, we can do a U, RU''R', which sets these up to a connected pair as well. Another example is if the edge piece is up here and the corner piece is down here, we can insert these two by doing an R'F, F' to set these up to a connected pair like that. So as you can see, there are many different ways to insert and solve F2L pairs, and it's up to you now in your F2L to determine which way to solve a particular F2L pair to influence your following F2L pieces. So here's another quick example of how multi-slotting can be very beneficial. So normally to solve these two pieces, we would do an RU''R', which gives us this case, which is quite bad to solve. So these two pieces down here can be solved at the same time if we do something like this. So instead of doing RU''R' like that, we can do RU''R', U'', RU''R' to solve those two, and then we just have these two to insert into the back like that. So this is something you really need to play around and experiment with and do slow solves and try to gain an intuitive understanding of which pieces are split up by different F2L triggers. So for example, solving these two with R'F, R'F' splits up these two pieces here like that, because that one came from there to there. But solving it with RU''R' doesn't split up these two pieces. They stay in the same position. So things like that you need to be aware of. Multislotting can also be just deciding which F2L pair to solve first if you have two options and not doing anything fancy beyond that. Because sometimes if you have two F2L pairs that you can potentially solve, it's probably better to do one over the other because of the way it sets up the other pair. So here's an example of what I just talked about, where this pair is immediately obvious to us up in the top layer here, and we can insert it by pairing these two up and putting them into the slot. However, if we do the less obvious pair here, by taking this corner out with an RU''R' and then inserting it, what we do is actually set these two pieces up to a 3-move case as well. So it's easier to insert this pair first and then insert these two, as opposed to do these two and then these two. Because if we do RU''R' like that, then we solve these two together, and we solve these two, and then those like that. So here's another example of basic multi-slotting. So if we have these two pieces in their positions but not correctly solved, and we have these two that we need to solve, we can solve these two and take out these two pieces out of that F2L slot, which is technically multi-slotting because we're making it easier for our next pair. So even if we're not setting this up to a super easy case, we can still take it out of its slot whilst we set up these two pieces, insert them, and then do this F2L pair. Probably the best thing for me to do now is just show you a few examples of how I would solve F2L and how often I would actually think about multi-slotting. Because like many things in this advanced F2L module, multi-slotting isn't something that you should be constantly thinking about and trying to implement throughout your F2L. It's more important just to be aware of it and do it where you can without going completely over the top and getting too complicated about it. So we've solved our cross. We can solve this first F2L pair like that. These two into the back. These two here. And then before we insert this F2L pair, like we would in that case, we can actually do an RU prime R prime. Notice that we have this edge here and this corner piece up here. So doing an RU prime R prime before we insert this pair actually pairs up this edge and this corner as well. And then we can insert it like that. And then this pair is already connected, so we can insert it like that. So again, we've solved our cross. We can insert our first F2L pair like that. Our second F2L pair is here. And actually, instead of inserting this directly, we can do an RU R prime and then insert it to set up these two. So if we inserted it normally, we would get this case, which is okay, but we can do an RU R prime, U prime, and then insert it. And then we have this F2L pair here. And lastly, this one. So a final note is that you shouldn't just explicitly copy these examples. You should go away and do slow solves and experiment with multi-slotting because it does take quite a bit of time to get used to something like this.